Yep, Oranguru also a favorite of Tord and not going to be accessible at the top of the prize cards. Lucas, one of the boss's orders, along with one of those Luminion,
Can be very problematic.
well, we are underway. We see the fist bump, and sure enough, we are going to have some incredible action here from both of these players. Looks like we get to see Tord Reklev starting things off here with the amazing rare Evital.
You must be feeling really good here if you're Tord winning that coin flip in the Lugia mirror match. Such a huge thing, and it's going to be on Lucas to really try and turn things around. And I think out of all the Pokemon you want to start with, Stoutland is at the very last of your list.
Absolutely, yeah. Even if you start with any of those extra Pokemon that you play in the deck, those Dunsparces and those Manaphies, at least it's only one prize card that you're going to be giving to your opponent. Sure enough, this Stoutland V is going to give 2 prize cards, and there's no real way to move it off of the field unless you are able to get 5 Pokemon onto your bench and then use that Collapse Stadium as we were talking about earlier.
Indeed, that's probably going to be Lucas's best way, but with the hefty retreat cost of Stoutland B, I think it's going to be very difficult to prevent that potential KO. Now, Lucas's way to try and stop Tord from setting up, he might not know how many copies of Collapse Stadium he will be playing, so if Tord ends up overbenching here a little bit, that could be a little costly, so we'll have to see if he chooses to bench that double Lugia that we've seen a lot, even when going first.
Yeah, we do see the capture energy, and of course you'd love to target down that Lugia V to start things off, but Tord likely looking for a familiar friend in that Oranguru, and that will not be an option this time around, and you do need to be wary of how many Pokemon are on your bench in situations like this. And if you do need one of those support Pokemon like the Luminion to perhaps continue to keep this train moving and maybe get some Archeops into the discard pile, only leaves one other bench space, I suppose, and you kind of have to leave that open.
Yeah, very important here for Tord to be checking out which cards he prized and probably realizing that those powerful energies are not available to him just yet. He does have one in his hand, but he must know that there's 2 in the prize cards. Usually, when playing Lugia, you want to make sure you check how many energies you have at your disposal so that you're not anticipating different plays and all of a sudden you can't access those plays because your cards are locked in the prize cards.
Well, we do see a relatively strong hand here. Just the decision, I suppose, is do you want to start playing down a lot of these cards, or do you hold them for next turn, play it a little slower, and you have an opportunity to barrage your opponent with these Evolution Incense, Ultra Ball, double Archeops, throw them away with the Professor's Research, and have the Lugia V-Star in hand. I suppose one awkward part of this is you have a powerful energy in hand, and you're going to have to likely play that down and get maximum use of it when you know that 2 are in the prize cards.
Certainly. The reason why you would hesitate here is because you can't, Tord doesn't have access to the double Archeops discard, it's just one. So you have to evaluate whether if you play this Evolution Incense now, you're getting an Archeops out of the deck, and then you will be able to discard it this turn with this Ultra Ball. However, if you do this now, then you're getting an Archeops out of the deck. That means you won't top deck one, and you will not be able to discard both. So even though you're helping yourself, you're also slightly reducing those chances. And if your opponent decided to Marnie you, then that play would be out of commission. But we are seeing Tord going ahead and making sure that he has at least one Archeops in the discard pile to start off.
Yeah, this is certainly a hedge against the Marnie play. You want to make sure that you at least have one of those Archeops in the discard pile, and we know that the Professor's Research certainly could leave this second Archeops in the discard pile on the second turn. And that seems like a pretty strong play. It also hints to Lucas that there's a little more play in this hand. The Ultra Ball didn't directly go for a Luminion, so certainly something good in that hand. And now it's up to Lucas to find some answers.
Exactly. Now I'll have to see if Lucas can get those very same Archeopses in the discard pile. One big difference between Tord's and Lucas's decks are the fact that Lucas only plays 2 copies of Lugia V-Star rather than 3. So the chances of him pulling off that turn 2 Summoning Star slightly lower than Tord's. Both players do have 4 Evolution Incense and do have 4 Ultra Balls. But certainly if Lucas ended up prizing one Lugia V-Star at any point in any of these 3 games, that could end up being a differential between these two players at the highest level of play.
Yeah, I suppose we do see some of the choices in the deck list also hinting towards not going terribly aggressive and potentially discarding one of those Lugia V-Stars. We only see the 2 Professor's Research in the list, so looking for a more consistent strategy with the multiple Luminion and searching out for the right supporter at the right time, and that can definitely lead to one of those turn 1 Marnies.
A lot of mind games could come into play as well, with both players playing Menafee and neither player playing Raikou, but that doesn't mean they know that from their opponent. So we could see an attempt at timing the Menafee with to protect from a Raikou play, but then neither player needs to worry about that. And we are going to see the Marnie from Lucas.
Yeah, this seems like a very solid strategy to go with here. We are going to see at least the powerful energy coming down here, and maybe that's also a nod to a potential large knockout with the Stoutland if nothing comes from this hand for Tord.
Yeah, this Marnie is especially strong here because Tord did give Lucas the information the previous turn that his hand was incredibly good. So now Lucas responds with that Marnie, trying to decrease the chances that Tord can pull off that turn to Summoning Star. However, with that hand, I do believe Tord will be able to do that. Will probably lead with Table Tell attacking and get this prize initiative started.
Do see in the hand the collapsed stadium. Certainly something to think about, but Lucas would be limiting his bench as well. Just the 2 slots available for Archeops if possible.
Tord does have an interesting decision here on which supporter to grab off of that Ultra Ball. He does not have access to that second Archeops just yet, and the double turbo in his hand does not help Yveltal get ready. If he chose to play with a single Archeops, then he needs one of the copies of Aurora Energy or Hiding Energy along with double Archeops to be able to pull this off. So one Archeops, even though it would allow Tord to start getting energies onto his side of the field, it would not allow him to really get that prize initiative going.
Well, we've seen Tord have to make some unfortunate decisions, I suppose, with these Ultra Balls, going to lose out on that double turbo, but as you were mentioning, not terribly beneficial here for the Yveltal just yet. Luminion going to use that Luminous Sign to search out the Professor's Research and hopefully assist Tord in using that Summoning Star this turn.
Yeah, Tord does need to draw a way to find Archeops into his hand and a way to discard it as well. Just getting the Archeops would not be good enough, so we're going to see this Research and the Lugia bench, possibly. If the Collapse Stadium had been played by Lucas, then that would definitely be a big no-no from Tord, but he still has that little bit of room, but he chooses not to.
Yeah, we're going to see the 1 Lugia V-Star strategy this time around, and this is something that we've been talking about in the mirror. When you go first, sometimes you only need the 1 Lugia V-Star to get the ball rolling. It was a little bit awkward when you have the Yveltal already in the active position. You don't have that Pokemon to use as a surprise factor, but certainly in this matchup, when you have the Luminion ready to go, you have to think that you'll be in these exchanges.
Now, Tord did get everything he needs to get that second Archeops in the discard pile, but it is going to be very costly. He needs to Ultra Ball for that Archeops, attach the Aurora Energy to then discard the Archeops, but his hand is also a little bit less than good because he doesn't have any follow-up supporters. So he's down to the cards that he has access to right now and his supporters as well.
Yep. Potentially with the counts, Tord may know that there's an opportunity in the prize cards for some assistance. You do have 2 prize cards staring right at you with that Stoutland V if you are able to take this knockout with the amazing rare Yveltal. And sure enough, we will see that Archeops going to the hand here and likely finding the bench very soon.
Yeah, Tord double checking his energy to make sure that he has access to all the ones that he needs in order to follow this up. After he's probably already planning for his next turn as well. It's not good enough to just be thinking about, well, I'm taking this knockout and then sit back and relax. You do need to follow up with something, and there's the attachment to the Charizard as a follow-up to the potential Lugia V-Star from Lucas.
Yeah, we see Tord making use of this energy attachment onto the Radiant Charizard, but it does open up a little bit of awkwardness here with the Collapse Stadium. We know that Lumineon is a great choice as an attacker, and at this point, what Pokemon would you even choose to get rid of with a Collapse Stadium?
Yeah, I mean, you could maybe argue the Lugia VSTAR with the knowledge that you do have two powerful energies in your prize cards and you don't know exactly when you're going to find them, even if you find one right now, which Tord will probably do because one of them is at the bottom of the prize cards. That third powerful energy could be a big loss in the prize card. So yeah, I think there's definitely merit to keeping the Lumineon, even though it would be an immediate discard from a lot of players, because Lumineon can shuffle itself back into the deck and not only remove itself as a liability, but also does enough damage to KO the opponent's Yveltal or potential Charizard. I think there's a lot of merit to conserving that Lumineon still.
Well, looks like we are lined up here for the amazing destruction from this Yveltal. An incredible attack, only really finding play here because of Archeops and the Summoning Star ability from Lugia, and that is going to be the first prize cards here in the Latin America International Championship, as Tord is going to take 2 prize cards off the board.
And speaking of Lumineon, that seems to be Lucas's choice for attacker right here. It does seem like he has enough in his hand to pull off the double Archeops as well and gets that Lumineon out of here whilst taking a prize card and eliminating a threat. But Tord with the Charizard already ready to go, Lucas will also need to bench a Pokemon essentially to sacrifice after this Lumineon has attacked.
Well, it looks like Oranguru is up for the task. We are going to see this professor's research, and that is going to toss away the Archeops and the looks like the Collapse Stadium as well. So maybe Lucas just wanting to see a little bit more before making this choice. It is nicer to play this card once you already see your Archeops down.
Yeah, that Collapse Stadium, as we've seen it help players, we've also seen it make it a little more complicated for them to get their double Archeops into play. So Lucas choosing not to make sure that he has all the bench space for any potential attackers and any potential sacrificial Pokemon that he'll need after this Lumineon attack.
Well, we see Lumineon getting charged up, and the Archeops is going to go back in. Number 2 here is potentially going to eye up some energies for perhaps a retreater, or we could even see the Lugia start to get rolling too. And it looks like Oranguru says, oh, I'll help out.
Interesting to see that V-Guard energy onto the Oranguru. That makes it so that, I mean, Lugia V-Star can get the KO. Lumineon was never getting the KO, but Tord is saying, okay, if you go and boss my Lugia or boss my Archeops, I already have a retreater ready to go for my next attacker. So very good preparation for Lucas for his upcoming turn. And I did want to make a mention that we just saw the Heatfire energy from Lucas get shuffled back into the deck. Tord chose Hiding Energy as his energy of choice. So both players only playing 4 Aura and 1 extra energy to be able to attack with either Charizard or Yveltal. And I'm sure that extra HP that Heatfire energy provides to Charizard must have become useful at some point for Lucas in his run.
Yeah, you can see that potentially in the mirror if the Lumineon isn't available. Maybe the Archeops gets rolling and we see multiple powerful energies, and maybe they're just 10 short because they didn't check which special energies you're holding.
Now, Tord really trying to figure out what his best game plan is here. Does he commit to an Archeops for the single price trade? Does he commit a Lugia knowing that a powerful energy is still in the price cards, even though he just unlocked one? And he also knows that his Lumineon is in play. He doesn't have access to Oranguru, and he doesn't have any draw supporters. So the cards he has right now are probably the ones that he'll have to use. However, of course, as I say that, he top decks that Marnie.
That's usually how it goes here, and Tord is going to go ahead and look through to see what energies should be accelerated in this circumstance. Certainly don't need nothing too impressive here. I do believe there's just the one powerful floating around, unless we got one off of the prize cards.
Yeah, he does have one in his hand from the prize cards. There is one more in his deck, and I do believe we saw one discarded earlier on. So at Rangaru's 120 HP, it shouldn't be a problem for this Lugia to take down. The question is, that double turbo, is there any merit to it to be able to attack with Archeops later on? Even potentially Luminion if it wants to take out a Radiant Charizard with very minimal energy investment. But we are seeing the attachment of the double turbo and the powerful here to fulfill the attack cost.
Yeah, I was almost just looking at powerful energy as any energy at this point, because I don't think we saw much left in towards deck. A lot of energies were used with that Evital taking a huge knockout, and we saw at least 2 energies that were discarded in getting the setup rolling here. So Tord does have some in the hand, so we will at least see that capture energy to fulfill the attack cost for this Lugia. Of course, even if you don't want to use this capture energy, you got to shuffle.
Yeah, usually when you attack with Yveltal, you want to use one of your copies of double turbo as it doesn't do damage, so you're not really reducing anything from its potential, and you make a little bit more energy efficient your attack. But Tord was forced to power it up fully with the 5 total energies, and here we see the Marnie disrupting Lucas and probably trying to lower the chances that Lucas has the best potential response, which at this point would probably be a Radiant Charizard with a choice build.
Yeah, that would be phenomenal. I'm not sure if the reach is there with the powerful energies and the potential choice belt necessary in order to take a knockout with a Lugia VSTAR of his own. We'll see if Lucas is going to focus on that, and that we do see the promotion here of the Lugia VSTAR.
And with Tord's lack of B-Guard energy, Lucas doesn't have to go out of his way to really get this KO. He's already holding the choice belt that he's about to attach now. He only needs 2 powerful energies in order to get the KO along with that double turbo. So he is staring down a Radiant Charizard though, so Lucas has to be aware of that and he needs to account for it.
Looks like a tough decision here for Lucas, potentially holding 2 double turbos in hand along with that final Professor's Research. If you want to go through the deck any further, you might have to make a tough call or play one of these energies somewhere you don't want to.
Yeah, there's 2 powerful energies being attached by Archeops. Which are the other energies? Will he commit to all of them, or will he choose to use the double turbos from his hand? Looks like he's eyeing up the capture and the powerful. I do feel like there's a lot of merit to keeping that capture still available to be able to find a backup Pokemon, but he does commit 2 of them right here.
Oh, that probably means we'll see the double turbo down to the Archeops at some point, just considering a speed wing or even a retreat at some point to get to one of those larger attackers, that Radiant Charizard that you were mentioning. But oh, we're going to actually see it to the discard pile, both of those going down, and Tord, his eyes widened a little bit there.
Yeah, he had to double check that card behind the Lugia to make sure he was seeing those 2 double turbos. And this might beg the question for Tord, is he playing a third one? Is he playing a copy of Twin, or how does he follow up this Lugia KO? Which attacker will he focus on?
Well, looks like the hand was already drawn, and Lucas is going to go ahead and take the knockout now on that Lugia VSTAR with Tempest Dive, going down to 3/3 prize cards.
Yeah, both players died, but Tord already has the response with that choice build. That's the big card that sometimes you have to dig for, but Tord very, very well prepared for this, making sure that no Marnie would catch him off guard from Lucas. Of course, that didn't happen, but neither player is playing away. Sorry, Lucas isn't playing a way to remove tools. Tord is playing a copy of Lost Vacuum, I believe. So we'll have to see which energy Tord commits here. And that will leave Tord at 1 prize card remaining. It is the powerful energy, but what is Tord's follow-up? He doesn't have a Lugia in play, therefore no Lugia VSTAR yet. He's already exhausted the Yveltal option. He'll probably lose the Charizard option this upcoming turn. So how does Tord close out this game?
That's a great point, because I think Tord is very low on energies. Unless he's holding a couple additional energies in hand, it's likely going to have to be the powerful energy from the prize card along with one of those last double turbo energies, and that really only leaves Pokemon like Archeops potentially as an attacker. Hopefully there is an Aurora energy and maybe a Lumineon can help out in this circumstance. There's probably an opportunity where Tord could get 2 attacks off as long as this Lumineon isn't targeted, and surely you have to think that Radiant Charizard will be the focus for Lucas here.
Now, Lucas did prepare very well for this situation. I do believe he still has access to 2 Powerfuls. No, never mind. I only see 1 in his hand. He's going for that Serena. We could see a choice build Serena KO onto the Lumineon on the bench. That would put Lucas at 1 prize card, but that would reset Tord's Charizard attack, and Tord would only need a Serena or Boss to take down one of Lucas's benched Pokemon. So I'm not quite sure what Lucas's best response here is. It could be just attacking with Lumineon as well, eliminate that Charizard, remove that liability, but then he needs something to withstand Tord's next attack.
Well, we will see what that means, as Tord is going to be very low on energies at this point. Lucas has to be aware, seeing the discard pile at some point, and 2 additional energies along with one of these big threats and some hand disruption should be able to help out in this spot.
Very interesting for Lucas here. He needs to draw an energy to attach to the Arceus, but he cannot draw all the energies. He still needs 1 left in his deck to finish powering up the Lumineon, and I don't think I see an energy in his hand. That means the Arceus can retreat, but it cannot power up the Lumineon for its final 3rd energy.
Yeah, it's a little unfortunate. Of course, we did see the Archeops used first to try to get some of these energies in play, but the second one was held, and sure enough, just not able to see one of those energies, perhaps wanting to draw first, but now just going to pass the turnover. The game is not done just yet. The Charizard is not able to attack unless it is able to reach the bench. Switching effects are not in this list right now, but is this a potential opening here for Tord to close things out here in game number 1?
Lucas must be thinking, why did I use that first Arceus ability? He still had a bunch of energy left. The chance of him drawing all of them were so low. He would have needed to draw all Aurora energy. So perhaps using that Arceus ability preemptively might have been his mistake last turn.
Tord is going to download as much information as possible, looking through the discard pile and seeing a fair amount of energies, but not enough to explain last turn. And Tord also considering what attack, if any, do you go for at this point. It's awkward to try to find a retreat. This Radiant Charizard has a 3 retreat cost. Is there an opportunity maybe to buy some time here and keep this Radiant Charizard with an opportunity to take a knockout on the following turn?
As far as I can tell, there's only 2 energies left in Tord Reklev's deck, so even though Lucas missed an attack, I'm not sure if Tord can get back-to-back attacks here at all. How does Tord close out the last prize card? He commits 1 last energy to the Radiant Charizard. Is he going to retreat perhaps? But then that would eliminate the Aurora energy. I'm not exactly sure what is going to happen here. He might have 1 more Aurora energy left.
That's the only thing that I can really see at this point. But we are going to see the Marnie come down, which means that that card could potentially be drawn. So I do worry about that situation. But if there were the Aurora and the double turbo, you could see the Lumineon attack, and then those energies would be available for the following turn. Just try to boss's orders, target down that Archeops 1 last time and close things out here. Radiant Charizard going to the bench now. Archeops promotion. That's going to be a pass. The resources are so low here.
Both of these decks are so good, both of these decks are so powerful, but both players have missed an attack so far. Now Lucas is holding a bunch of energies in his hand, but no way to bring up that Radiant Charizard. So if Tord does have that last Aurora, that does mean that every energy will have put in the work for Tord, and he will be taking his last prize card with his last energy.
Yeah, it looks like we are going to just see the fist bump there. Maybe Lucas has an understanding of what is left in Tord's deck. If the Aurora energy was there, then the Radiant Charizard would likely be able to close things out. Looks like we will see the V-Guard energy in the prize cards for Lucas, along with that Oranguru. Little reversal of fortunes here from the prize cards of game number 1. And Tord, with the consistency of all of these counts, will not be affected by some of those prize cards, as we do see one of the Lugia Vs there.
Yeah, 1 Arceus as well, prize for Tord, but because he is playing the 4 copies, that wouldn't be super impactful. If he were playing 3 though, then he'd only have exactly 2 left to get exactly 2 into play. Now we are seeing Lucas lead with that capture energy, so he'll be checking his energies, checking which attackers are available, and if there's any key cards that he needs to account for when preparing for his plays.
Yeah, we've seen cards like this effect in the Pokemon TCG many times before. Just being able to find basic Pokemon, and this opening deck search also needs to be valued as well. It's so important to the consistency of these builds, and sure enough, Lucas is going to get plenty of information right now, as we do see the notes being taken here, and that is also something these players are welcome to do on the big stage.
And speaking of all similar effects of older cards, I can't tell you, Kyle, how many times I've called capture energy call energy in all of my videos and live streams. It's just, it's ingrained in me, so.
Yeah, the call energy was one of our favorites as we played in the SP era of this the Pokemon TCG. It's a little bit of different effect, but it was definitely as impactful.
Now Lucas very aggressively discarding double Lugia here in order to fetch that Arceus, recognizing that he's probably not going to be using more than 1 Lugia V-Star this game, and actually going for that Stoutland, making sure that he has the option to potentially get 2 prize cards off of that Yveltal.
Well, this is certainly looking like a strong start there for Lucas. Don't have to worry about seeing just the 1 Lugia V. We've mentioned this before. When you go first, you just need 1, really, and obviously the build speaks to that, as Lucas is just playing the 2 Lugia V-Star. So looking to just get the Summoning Star down and get the rest of the puzzle pieces lined up afterwards.
Now we do see Lucas holding a Boss's Orders and a Lugia V-Star, so that probably means that he could target towards Reklev single Lugia if that's all he was able to get into play. So the pressure is on Tord to get those 2 Lugia Vs out. And if that does happen, then Lucas also gave himself the option to potentially power up that Stoutland with 4 powerful energy and lead the way with a 2 prize KO on the Yveltal.
That would certainly be a disaster here for Tord Reklev and all of his fans, but we do see that the opening energy here is the capture. The Lugia is found, and you have to think that maybe in this hand there has to be some of that consistency. The 4 Quick Ball, the 4 Ultra Ball, or even 2 of those Lugias that are still around with the other in the prize cards.
Indeed, I do fully expect Tord to make sure that he's fully prepared for that worst case scenario of Lucas holding a Lugia V-Star and a boss, and making sure that he's ready for that by benching another Lugia. But as we've mentioned before, bench space is quite important. We are going to see that Marnie though.
Oh.
So taking away that boss from Lucas, but also putting himself at risk to where his last resort of getting that second Lugia down to prevent that worst case scenario.
Yeah, at the least, Lucas is down that Lugia V-Star along with the boss's orders, so that will be on the bottom of the deck. But did Tord find what he needs?
Tord did not find another way to bench a second Lugia V, so it's on Lucas to be able to capitalize on this. Now, with Lucas's hand currently, I don't think he'll be able to, which is a little unfortunate.
This might actually be possible. I think we saw the evolution incense along with the Ultra Ball. If the target is potentially the Luminion, there is an additional evolution incense for that Lugia V-Star. He could full commit to this play and just leave himself with no hand, but I think that we could see this Lugia go down.
All right, as soon as I was saying that, he top decked that Ultra Ball. So once again, my analysis being undermined by a player's top decks. But here we are, goes for the Serena very well. We might even see a quick concession by Tord, recognizing that he's going to fall really far behind, but he'll probably also get a sort of read that maybe Lucas doesn't have a lot to follow this up, so Tord might stick in this to try and make this comeback.
Yeah, at the very least for Lucas, even if the prize cards aren't helpful here, we do see the Luminion is down. That is a Pokemon that could potentially take prize cards. The Evital is down as well. That could take upwards of 2 prize cards. So you can see that the exchanges would still be favored for Lucas, and many opportunities to find a card like a supporter in the prizes is available. We are going to see that quick ball. We know that there are multiple copies of Luminion and at least 1 bench space right now. So Lucas in a fantastic spot here in game number 2.
The worst case scenario did happen, and Tord missed all his outs to the second Lugia. He had a capture energy, I believe, in his hand, but he's choosing not to commit to that. He's just going to Marnie, delay Lucas. I mean, give Lucas extra cards, as he was only holding 3 of them after taking the 2 prize cards. And Tord does find another capture and a quick wall, so this is the turn where he could bench double Lugia finally, but is it a little bit too late?
Yeah, you're gonna see the commitment here is you're asking so much. Tord needs a lot of opportunities, and sure enough, his opponent just played their entire hand and knocked out the only Lugia, and you have to give them 4 cards in return in order to stay in this game. And all the prize cards are now available here for Lucas in just 2 turns, as we see the multiple Lugia V in play.
Tord, it's very telling how he just threw the Lugia B into play, being like, dude, you're 1 turn too late. Lucas doesn't do much during his turn, though, as commits an energy and takes a knockout on that Yveltal.
Yeah, and when you see none of the Archeops abilities used, maybe you consider that your opponent could be holding something relevant, but also would you also just try to go for one of those V knockouts at that time? So maybe no gusting effect, but certainly something relatively okay in the hand. We'll have to see.
Now, Tord is staring down both a Lugia V-Star and an almost powered up Yveltal, so he knows that this Lugia V-Star will certainly be going down next turn. And it's on Lucas to find that last resort to take a prize card. But unlike the previous game, which was really back and forth, Lucas has been extremely efficient with the use of his energies. He has not invested too many resources into getting those KOs. And yeah, Tord throwing away the cards, knowing he's so far behind that it's going to be really difficult to pull this off. But you never know, maybe Lucas ends up whiffing something, or maybe Lucas ends up making a mistake at some point that allows Tord to make this comeback.
Yes, quite literally throwing away this Archeops into the eventual discard pile. Oranguru going to at least get a card out of the deck, and we see the evolution incense here once more. Powerful energies are going to be the friend of Tord Reklev here, as he eyes down a potential knockout here with the Lugia V-Star, but just going to continually start to thin down the deck and get these Archeops into the correct place.
Turns out a turn 4 double Archeops is way less good than a turn 2, so we're going to see Tord really have to delay this. But okay, one way he could start trying to make this comeback would be taking a knockout with a single prizer on this 2 prizer. However, I did not see a choice build in Tord's hand, so I'm not so sure that's even possible this turn.
Yeah, and with Lucas at even just the 3 prize cards, it means that at any time, if one of those V Pokemon were to fall after a single prizer, this could be a disaster. But you do start to wonder if this Lugia V-Star could stick around for an additional turn, would Tord have an opportunity? Looks like that door would be closed pretty quickly with the Amazing Rare Yveltal.
I'm sure if Lucas had access to his V-Guard energy, who would have attached it to the Lugia, making it even more complicated for Tord to achieve this knockout, forcing the choice build, which is so crucial. But unfortunately, it's still in his prize cards. Tord will be able to finally get his attack off, get his first 2 prize cards, but Lucas ready to go with the response.
Well, that hand was not very great. A lot of awkward cards to be seen, but we will see the Archeops assisting by pulling some of these energies out of the deck, and Yveltal should be prepared to take the knockout here on the Lugia V-Star. We are going to see that additional energy onto the Archeops. Thinking of potential retreating, as Lucas will be eyeing down just 1 more prize card after this turn.
There's nothing Tord can do here other than deal with the Yveltal and then hope Lucas doesn't have a KO. Not just 1 turn, but 2 turns, as Tord will only be taking 1 prize card. and will have 3 remaining. He immediately promotes the Lugia. It is the bulkiest attacker, the one with the most HP. Charizard right here could be eliminated quite simply by a Luminion. So Tord trying to force the most out of Lucas, trying to make him need the most amount of cards in order to get this response.
Yeah, we see the high hit points of the Lugia VSTAR potentially going to keep Tord around here. Could take the knockout, and then maybe we could see some plays where you use the Luminion and try to bounce around into these Archeops, take advantage of the hit points that are there. 150 can be a difficult number at times for Lucas to find.
The big advantage for Lucas right now is that he doesn't need to win this turn. He could still not get what he needs this particular turn and still have an extra turn to do so. So he's eyeing those energies. We might even see an attack with the Archeops as we are seeing right now, setting up that 2-hit KO, but we do see the boss for game as we head into game number 3. Yep. Yveltal, amazing rare this time around, so that's step number 1. Prizing to capture energies right here, so that could be problematic, but he does have the boss's orders at the bottom, so that could end up being a factor for a follow-up play in the beginning. But Lucas not choosing to start the Yveltal, choosing to start a Lugia V.
Yeah, that's a pretty interesting call. We've seen a lot of the time, if you go second, you like to start with a Pokemon that only is going to give up 1 prize card. It keeps you in the prize exchange, and you often worry that this Lugia V would be knocked out, and your opponent could potentially take 4 prize cards very early in the game if they find momentum.
Now, Lucas did get a really, really good hand to lead into the double Archeops discard plus Luminion. It seems like Tord's hand is also quite good, and Tord already has a Lugia in play, doesn't have to worry about getting a second one, and has the capture energy to look through his deck, realize exactly which resources he has access to, and I believe he also has the possibility to discard 2 Archeopses in this very first turn. So we are going to see at least both players fully set up and go into the swing of things.
This is going to be fantastic. Exactly what we love to see here. Even Tord eyeing up the Oranguru, which could potentially help shore up this hand here. We did see a lot of those resources, which could help out with getting the Archeops into the discard pile. But we saw a card like Boss's Orders, which is something which would be so helpful for promoting the Lugia, but you're already staring at it in the active spot.
Yeah, those 2 prizes will be very important for Tord if he manages to find that KO in his second turn. Lucas will also need to have the response ready, but I think Luminion will really showcase its strength here because both players will probably be utilizing it on their second turn, or Lucas even on his first turn, to be able to set up. So Luminion being a big factor in this finals, and it gives me a little bit of nostalgia for that NAIC finals where we saw Tord playing the 4 Tapu Leles. We are seeing the importance of having that possibility to search for something with your 4 Quick Balls and 4 Ultra Balls. They essentially become supporters themselves.
Yeah, this is exactly what Tord loves to see, the consistency of the deck shining as all of these resources are in his hand and has so many options in how to play this out. Love to see that Quick Ball, that capture energy as well. Just going to leave plenty of opportunities for cards like Luminion to help out in the next turn.
Now, Tord having to discard that Boss's Orders right here does mean he will not have access to that resource at the end of the game, where you might need to gust a single prize Pokemon, a Pokemon that your opponent is preparing to attack, such as the Radiant Charizard, as Serena cannot target that. So having access to only 1 Boss's Orders throughout the rest of the game could end up being a differential in this finals match, where the simplest and smallest of things, because these 2 players are so evenly matched in their skill, can end up being the reason why one player loses or wins.
Yep, both players are playing the split 2 Boss's Orders and 2 of the Serena, so it is nice to have that opportunity to pull up the 1 prize Pokemon, but also in situations like this, maybe you are going to be the aggressor, and it's on Lucas to be able to find those opportunities to take the prize cards off of the bench. We do know that that 1 Boss's Orders is in the prizes for Lucas, but at the bottom, that might be a little more helpful here, as we could see that in the middle of this game.
Very smartly, Tord uses Oranguru to guarantee that the Luminion is at the top of his deck. making sure that even if Lucas tried to disrupt him with Marnie, he would at the very least have a guaranteed supporter, as at this point I think both players can very safely assume that neither player is playing a copy of Path to the Peak here.
Yep, love to see that. Having the perfect opportunity to make whatever play necessary will help take the advantage here for Tord. Lucas is going to go ahead and toss away one of these Archeops, and certainly looking for a little more play here, but the hand did look promising.
Yeah, both players had pretty good hands starting off here, so the only thing making a difference here is the fact that Lucas went second, so he will be losing that Lugia on turn 1. I don't imagine, even though Tord does have a boss's orders in his hand, he won't be able to capitalize on that unless Lucas for some reason chose not to bench a second Lugia, which he's already holding. So there's no way at this stage he's going to be making that mistake. We're going to see a straight up Luminion for research to try and find a better hand.
Yep, there's also the opportunity to maybe go for this Marnie, as it looks like. Lucas may just want to find some disruption, but as we know, the Oranguru certainly not going to let that happen, and sure enough, we do see that Professor's research going to be helpful here.
There's definitely merit to the Marnie, but knowing that Tord has the Oranguru and did use Primate Wisdom, you have to assume Tord did put that Luminion at the very top. If Tord had not done that, then there might have been more merit to that Marnie, quite simply because with Tord having the Luminion in his hand, it would have been put directly into the bottom of the deck. But it's certainly the card that Lucas can predict. It's at the very top. It's an educated guess he can do, and we are going to see the Read the Wind for extra cards right here.
Yep, the discard of the Stoutland for 3 cards. I think that's a trade that both of these players would take at any time.
Now, Tord has a very interesting decision to make here. He knows Lucas has a lot of cards in his hand, 7 if I'm not mistaken, and Tord can choose to go for the Marnie to disrupt Lucas, but he doesn't have the Lugia VSTAR yet, and it quite simply might come down to the fact that 7 cards is bigger than 5, therefore maximizing the possibilities to get that Lugia VSTAR in play, utilize Summoning Star, and get the 2 Arcubuses. Even though you might want to disrupt your opponent's big hand, the most important thing, and the thing that will let you get ahead and start capitalizing on the advantage that you got by choosing to go first, will be maximizing your chances on getting out that Lugia VSTAR. So I cannot imagine that Tord will really care too much, even if Lucas had 12 cards in his hand.
We do see that Tord has the attachment for the turn of that capture energy, and I think this will really speak wonders to what the strategy is here, as we can clearly see that the Lugia VSTAR that potentially would come out this turn could take the knockout here on the Lugia V, and then what does the prize map look like from there? The Yveltal could potentially take a knockout on another V Pokemon, and then the Luminion and potentially that Radiant Charizard could be cards to close out. Of course, need to be considerate of the bench space right now, as the 2 Archeops would love to see play. So after this Luminion is benched, expect to see no additional Pokemon being played other than those Archeops.
A big play that Lucas could utilize to try and take away the advantage that Tord currently has is we can safely predict that Tord will be taking these 2 prize cards right here, and Lucas will be counteracting that with the Yveltal that he already has down. And if Yveltal does have the V-Guard energy attached, that would prevent Luminion from taking it down, possibly forcing Tord to utilize one of his very valuable Archebuses, or even Yveltal itself, to take down Lucas's Yveltal. So that could be a play Lucas could try to make in order to come back from this, as Tord slams that Lugia VSTAR into play.
Yep, that is one play that Lucas has available that Tord does not, as the V-Guard energy is not featured in Tord Reklev's list.
We're going to see that VSTAR for the double Archeops. Tord ready to go to take this KO. He doesn't need a lot of energy commitments in terms of powerful energy. He definitely cannot afford to use the double turbo unless he also wants to commit 1 powerful, which would be a little wasteful, or a choice build, which also would be a little wasteful. So we're going to see what exactly he's planning in terms of his resource management. Tord has the initiative. It's on him to make every energy count and make sure that he's getting the most out of every single energy to be able to close out this game.
Yeah, we've seen, well, the aesthetically pleasing four capture energies very often from Tord, as he doesn't value those energies too much later in the mid game. As you've mentioned, that can be relevant. It could help you find a card like a Radiant Charizard at an opportune time, but maybe we will have to see one of those Aurora energies or the powerful energies played here. I'm not sure if all four captures are available.
Yeah, that's where you have to really know exactly what is priced, what isn't, and also try to predict the future turns. That capture energy, as you just mentioned, has a lot of value, not only as a way to retreat or attack, but also as a way to combo with promoting an Archeops, attaching the capture, searching for the right Pokemon for your next attack without having it in play, because sometimes you need to protect your Pokemon. You can't immediately bench them because they could be targeted by your opponent, so having them in the deck or in your hand prevents that from happening. So Capture Energy has that added value, not only in the early game to help with your consistent setup, but in the late game to combine with a one retreater and getting the right attacker out at the right time.
Looks like we do see one of those capture energies, and then the decision just becomes, do I value Aurora or Powerful? Looks like Aurora is going to be more valued here as the Powerful energy is going to come down.
Yeah, that powerful energy with Tord not having any sort of Lugia VSTAR follow-up right now in play. They do lose value as the game goes on. There's no Stoutland access either. I believe it's already hit the discard pile, so Tord will not be pulling off a quad powerful energy attack into KOing the Eviltal. So yeah, I think the onus is on Lucas to really make something happen and have Tord miss an attack. The boss's orders in the discard pile will give him a little bit of hope, and I generally think V-Guard Energy Eviltal is the best follow-up that Lucas could have.
Well, we'll see if Lucas has the reach for that on the following turn. Of course, hasn't even seen a Lugia V-Star, hasn't had an opportunity to, as this will be the second turn of the game here for Lucas after we see Tord attacking. Tord just going to make sure to set up as best as possible. We see that Aurora energy coming down onto the Evital, and maybe that does just solidify a little more additional help for next turn, or even hint at the fact that an Archeops may have to attack at some point, as you were mentioning with that Evital.
Lucas is holding the Lugia V-Star in his hand, which is really good. He's also holding a bunch of energies, and there's the Eviltal. So in order for him to pull off this V-Guard energy Eviltal, he will need to commit 5 energies total onto Eviltal, which is a big, big ask. But I'm sure that's what he's planning. There's no way you could miss. You could make Tord miss an attack. Otherwise, there he checked for that V-Guard, double checking that it is available to him. We are going to see the quick wall as well. So it's on Tord to have a way to deal with this. And other than Eviltal, he could commit an Archeops, but then that will limit him to 1 Archeops for the rest of the game.
Well, that is something that Tord is going to have to think about, as this Evital is certainly going to be ready to use Amazing Destruction this turn. Lucas did notice that V-Guard energy and likely will be going for that play. We're going to go ahead and see these energies accelerated by way of the Archeops here, and likely going to see that V-Guard energy featured, starting off here with the Aurora energies.
Yeah, please, Lucas, make me look good right here. Please, please help me out. There's the third Aurora energy, and there's the V-Guard energy. So that takes Luminion out of commission to be able to get a return KO here. I'm sure Tord will account for this and will evaluate what his best move right here is. Lucas also has 2 essential liabilities, and if you didn't realize about the V-Guard before, if you were Tord, you definitely realize this now. But this is Lucas's also best option, combining this KO with the Marnie, making it a lot more difficult for Tord to find the perfect response, which could have been a boss's orders plus Serena to get the last 2 KOs on those 2 Luminions, or quite simply a different attacker like a regular Lugia or something. So the big tell here is the fact that there's a double Turu, so there's 6 total energies for Lucas on that Eviltal. Even though it only needs 5, now we're just giving him extra power here.
Yeah, we see the Marnie come down, so Ultimate Disruption along with this huge knockout here, as Amazing Destruction will remove the Lugia V-Star from play. We did see both players with a full bench, so you start to wonder maybe if Lucas could find an opportunity to use that stadium card and help out, but it looks like it was not found there off of the Marnie.
Now, Tord did find a Serena off of that Marnie. It seemed like he was going to promote the Evil Doll, so he would have the option to get an extra 2 prizes right here if he chose. He also has the option to just get rid of this Evil Doll with his own, but that's 5 energies total committed in order to get rid of a single prize Pokemon. So it's not the best cost-effective way to do this.
Yeah, this is maybe starting to look like Lucas has found an opportunity to close down the path that we see typically when players go first in this match. They are favored, but Lucas is starting to make this look like a very even match as Tord left in an interesting spot here, promoting the Amazing Rare Yveltal and considering playing down all of these energies.
Now, Tord having to start thinking as well as his follow-up, about his follow-up turn. I'm sure he's already planned whether he's going to commit to this KO or he's going to Serena into a KO on Lugia or Luminion. I would imagine Lugia is the bigger threat here, but this is definitely a big turn for Tord, and that Marnie did limit his overall options, but he was able to find that Marnie off of his 5th card of his top deck, and therefore Tord could respond with Disruption on Lucas and this KO, putting the pressure on Lucas to find a response to this Evil Doll.
We'll see if the strategy here for Tord is to just target down V Pokemon and get very aggressive. Of course, leaving a Pokemon like this Amazing Rare Yveltal in the active with all of these energies feels awful. You would just know that a guaranteed knockout is available, but if you can knock out a Pokemon like one of these Luminion or the Lugia VSTAR, of course, that just leaves one more gusting effect and potential Radiant Charizard to close out on this game.
Now Lucas does have access to that Heat Fire energy along with one more Aurora energy to be able to attack with Radiant Charizard at any given point. I believe he also has access still to both his Boss's Orders and Serena, so that Luminion on the bench could end up, on Tord Reklev's bench, could end up being a determining factor here in the outcome of the game. Tord committing those energies, I think he's just deciding whether he's going to commit to the Marnie or to the Serena KO.
Yeah, some options are still available. We see that hiding energy. That means that the retreat is available too. We could potentially still see that Archeops come down with enough energies to take the knockout here. So Tord has opportunities. It just really depends on what he wants to go with. Oranguru going to try to find an additional helpful card here. And we did see the Marnie in hand. I'm still curious to see what supporter is going to be played.
Tord holding a Collapse Stadium as well. There's not much value in that right now because that would just take away one of Lucas's 2 Luminions, most likely, but he'd still have the option to utilize the other one. Tord committing his energy attachment for turn onto the Yveltal, and he's eyeing up the Serena as well. So you have to wonder, what is his prize mapping, as you mentioned? Which 4 prizes is he taking? And if he chooses to take 2 prizes here, to advance his win condition by leaving only 2 prizes left, that does leave an Yveltal fully powered up with 6 energies, in fact, being able to take down this Yveltal and giving the same conundrum to Tord in his next turn.
Yeah, imagine playing the Serena and you have this really tough decision. Do you take down all of the hit points of the Lugia V-Star that leaves the Luminions available, but then that opens up avenues where Lucas could play down a Collapse Stadium with 5 Pokemon, remove a Luminion, and then of course Aqua return for a knockout and remove all of the Vs from play if the Lugia was targeted.
Exactly, so a lot of things happening right here, a lot of micro decisions that could end up helping either player or potentially giving them a disadvantage. And each player knows how many resources they each have left, but they don't necessarily know the exact amount of resources their opponent has, because you have to factor in deck list, knowledge, but also the prize card. So we'll have to see how Tord follows this 2-hit KO. The Yveltal will pose the exact same problem, and if Lucas can combine this KO with yet another Marnie, then it could be really, really good for him. It's all in Tord. Like, by doing this, he's saying, well, if I get another boss effect, I'm already going to win this game.
That is absolutely what has happened here. Tord Reklev putting the game on a clock, as we will see 2 prize cards come down, and that is just 1 V Pokemon knockout away from crowning Tord Reklev the champion, if he has the cards in hand to do so.
And if we don't consider any ghost effects, Tord will be taking 2 prizes here, needing 2 more attacks if he has to deal with 2 single prizers. However, Lucas very promptly promotes that Luminia, and he's probably going to try and do the play that you were mentioning, Aqua Return the active, whilst combining a Collapse Stadium to get rid of the other one, making it so that Tord will have a hard time taking a follow-up knockout here.
Eyeing down the potential Radiant Charizard. Ooh, the Oranguru, very nice. As we saw multiple bosses' orders in the hand, maybe could start to manipulate that and leave some of those cards back in the deck, as you don't need 2 right now. Maybe you can find an additional resource here to help out.
Lucas going for that 4th Aurora. Tord now with the knowledge that all 4 are available, going for the power-up on the Luminion. And you have to wonder, what Pokemon will Lucas promote as the sacrificial one after he uses Aqua Return?
Yep, maybe enough energies are in play to where you can feel comfortable promoting the Archeops. Certainly, you can see that you will have enough energies on that Evital to take some prize cards in the future, but it does leave you leaving a little bit extra from your hand. You'll need to have energies, or at least the double turbo in use to use a lot of your other attacks.
1 boss's orders does go down, however, with this research. 1 was protected thanks to Oranguru, but now the other one is in the discard pile, making it a little bit harder to gust up the right Pokemon, as Lucas will have 1 boss's orders and 2 Serenas, but of course Serena cannot bring up an Archeops or an Oranguru, or that very likely Radiant Charizard towards the end of the game. And there's the Collapse Stadium!
Yes, that was absolutely crucial there. Doing this in the perfect order, grabbing all of those energy cards out of the deck, and then, of course, saving that boss's orders. The 6 remaining cards needed to find that Collapse Stadium, and is going to take all of these V Pokemon off of the board now, almost solidifying at least 1 additional turn for Lucas to stay in this game with a plenty of Pokemon to close out.
Now this is an interesting hesitation by Lucas. He's definitely trying to figure out which Pokemon is the best to promote. By committing that Yveltal here, it does stop Luminion from being able to get a KO, but now Archeops is the real threat here. Archeops could take down this Yveltal, putting Tord Reklev at 1 prize card remaining, and then it's going to be on Lucas to be able to close out this game. It will literally come down to, can Tord, or will Tord eventually miss an attack, or at the very least a knockout?
Yeah, that does also mean that we likely will see the Luminion stay on the board, as it won't be using Aqua Return, and I think that is something that we definitely need to note here, as Lucas is looking at that as his prize map to victory, at least 1 additional prize at some point on one of these single prize Pokemon, and then clearing off the victory there with the Luminion.
This is where we see the big advantage of going first. Tord has not exhausted those powerful energies just yet. He still has access to them, thanks to not needing a bunch of them to knock out a Lugia VSTAR. He only needed a few energies to knock out Lucas's starting Lugia V. So we are going to go ahead and see Tord utilize those powerful energies, make sure that he has the right amount in case he needs to attach a double turbo energy to counteract that powerful. And I believe he has enough energies left in his deck, so this promotion from Lucas needed to be perfect, and he needs to find a way to prevent Tord from getting a knockout next turn.
It seems difficult, as Tord has done an excellent job preserving plenty of resources here. Even see an energy like that Aurora energy coming down, which could be beneficial on a Pokemon like that Radiant Charizard. So certainly you would expect to see the reach from Tord for that next turn with another Aurora energy, perhaps.
I do see his last Aurora energy is left in his deck, so chooses not to bench that Radiant Charizard off of that capture area. Oh, maybe it was the second Archeops ability attaching it, sorry. All right, So that Charizard still available as an option. Luminion also available in case Lucas goes for his own Charizard. There is exactly one Aurora Energy in Tord's hand. So if that gets Marnied away, he will have access to it with Arceus. And if it doesn't, then he can just attach it from hand to power up potentially Luminion or potentially Radiant Charizard.
Also love to see that the Powerful Energy was kept in the deck, and the additional Powerful Energy was played on the benched Archeops. That means that it could potentially attack a Archeops for the victory on the next turn if this active were to fall. But we do see Tord Reklev moving down to just one prize card remaining here against the 3 of Lucas with under 10 minutes to go here. And this is going to be quite the turn here for Lucas to try to figure out how to stay in this matchup.
There's the Capture Energy, which might prompt a Radiant Charizard, maybe even a Lugia if he has enough Powerful Energies left. The Lugia V could be seen as an attacking option. It does have the highest amount of HP, but if Lucas does not disrupt Tord Reklev's hand, I do believe he's already holding that Ultra Ball to search for the Radiant Charizard.
And we see Lucas considering Radiant Charizard along with that Heat Energy, the Lugia V, and just getting 4 energies accelerated there. And it looks like the Archeops is going to start to help out this Lugia V in one final attack.
There's the 3 powerful energies onto that Lugia, so definitely enough to be able to take a knockout right here. So then, can Lucas make sure that Tord is not able to find the Charizard? I think it was very smart for Tord not to bench that Charizard. It would potentially allow Lucas to take it down, but by leaving it in the deck instead of in his hand does mean that if he does get Marnie, then he still has a chance to draw it off his deck, and there's the Marnie.
Yeah, Tord keeping the hand down and just breathing, hoping to hold on to the resources that could potentially be the closeout here, and Lucas finding the Marnie to potentially stay in this game, keep this Lugia V around for an additional turn, and we will see the arrow dive here for the knockout on the Archeops, removing one decently sized threat, and we'll see if Tord can find the answer.
Tord has a Quick Ball and an Ultra Ball in his hand, has a Charizard in the deck, and we did see that Aurora going back, so we're going to see the Quick Ball that he also did top deck. Lugia gets discarded. Charizard will get fully powered up here, and there's no way this Lugia can survive here.
That
and there's
will
the
be
game.
Enough. Tord Reklev coming out on top here in Latin America. He has done it. He has taken all 4 hemispheres of the globe. And you can see the look on him now, as this means so much to Tord, as he has finally taken over the globe and he is the Latin American International Champion.
Even his